Just want to take you back to a story a couple of weeks ago. Do you remember the story about the Tel Aviv football fans being banned from Birmingham for the game against Aston Villa in the Europa League? A group of local leaders, people, got together and decided that it would be best if this team, who in their mind were responsible for much violence, didn't travel. Lots of people jumping up and down saying this is anti-Semitic. It was because of the large Muslim population in Birmingham, and it was playing to a certain degree, certain demographic. Now, a West Midlands Police chief, they've apologised to the Jewish community this morning over that Tel Aviv fan ban. Let's say good morning again to Jake Wallis Simons, author and columnist. Jake, good morning.
Good morning.
Finally, tell us more. They've apologised. Explain more in detail for me if you can.
Well, this is evidence that the police have been giving under scrutiny to a select committee in Parliament at this outrage of this ban, anti-Semitic ban against Jewish and Israeli football fans coming to Birmingham. And the latest ridiculous move on behalf of the police was that they suggested, now get this, that Jews apparently had been consulted by the police and had agreed, yeah, it's probably best that you don't invite us because we probably cause trouble. This obviously came out as being totally untrue, and the police were forced to apologise to the Jewish community for making that pretty offensive and outrageous suggestion. But it's just the latest way in which the police's case is beginning to unravel. For example, another interesting part was where the police report was exposed as having used artificial intelligence to give them a false account of a game that the Israeli team had allegedly played against West Ham a couple of years ago. That game had never taken place, but the police cited it in their report. Now, the question this raises is, why didn't the police go to West Ham and say, look, guys, did you get any trouble from these Israeli fans? Go to the Metropolitan Police and say, did you get any trouble from these Israeli fans? Because if they had done, A, they'd have discovered that this match had never taken place, and B, they'd have also discovered, with a bit of further research, that over the last 100 games that this Israeli team had played in Europe, trouble had not been caused once. Not once.
But of course the problem with all of this is that you then get left with the overriding feeling that anti-Semitism is alive and well. And you know, there will be people who don't like what I'm going to say, Jake, but within Birmingham there is a huge and large, I worked there for 15 years, 5 years for BRMB. There is a large Muslim population, and you know, there are two main football teams, Aston Villa and Birmingham, and that population is very close to both of those teams. And the inference here is that a group of community leaders, led by Muslims, led by the police, whatever, decided that it would be best not to have, quite rightly, as you said, Maccabi Tel Aviv. Of course, the Jewish community went, hold on a second, that's a bit harsh. You've been proven to be making stuff up. But it smacks of a bigger problem, doesn't it? It smacks of a problem that police and people in authority can make a decision. And I've said something before on this show, and I'd love your take on this, because some people don't like it. I find any racism abhorrent, okay, abhorrent. I want to make that point. But I do fear that we are getting to a point where anti-Semitism isn't treated in the same way as the appalling racism against other religions. I don't think it should be on the colour of your skin. I think it should be on what you believe in and how you are treated. And I wish, genuinely, not saying this to you, I've said it for as long as I've sat here, that anti-Semitism was treated in exactly the same way as other forms of racism, because I think it's fundamentally wrong.
Absolutely right. I think what the Aston Villa debacle has shown is that if you don't recognise and stand up against anti-Semitism when it's coming at you, you turn yourself into the instrument of anti-Semitism. And that's exactly what has been happening with the police in Birmingham, because what's been happening is that they've been manipulated by some Islamists. And I think the words that nobody is saying here is Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood is an Islamist organisation that seeks to control our country and turn it into a Sharia state by working through the levers of government, the levers of officialdom, the levers of police.
Well, for people who think that you're talking outrageously, there was a video which we haven't got now, but I remember playing it about 3 weeks ago before the match was taking place, probably further back, when I think there were three, weren't there, Christian Muslim men, and they were basically saying, don't even bother coming, we're going to get rid of all the Jews. It was absolutely outrageous. I'm sure they haven't been prosecuted, but then that poor ex-Marine's been told for daring to say that an illegal migrant, some have attacked young children, and he's worried about his kids. He goes to court and could have gone to jail, for Christ's sake. We don't seem to get it right in terms of balance, do we, nowadays?
Yeah, there was a video of a local imam saying that he would show no mercy, quote unquote, to the Jewish and Israeli fans were they to come to Birmingham. And yet we're being asked to believe by police that it's the Israeli and Jewish fans that are the problem, even though they've caused no problem in 100 games. But look, this Muslim Brotherhood group was called 10 years ago by a government report a national security risk. Nothing's been done in the last 10 years. They've been embedding themselves throughout our Muslim communities and beginning to control the police and influence their decisions. That is serious. Who controls Britain's streets? It's starting to look as if Islamist thugs in part of the country are controlling it and controlling the police as well. The police needs to get its house in order, admit where it's been lying, where it's been covering its own backside, and start to take action against the actual Islamist thugs who are trying to bring us down, rather than the innocent Jews who just want to come and watch a football match.
And then when you have that discussion, people will say, let's just have the discussion, let's be open. It's the place where you come to speak freely. People will say, oh, you're being anti-Islam, you're being anti-Muslim, but nobody ever says you're being anti-Jewish. Presumably, let's be straight with each other, a large number of people will look at what's happening in Gaza and will believe that the Jewish community is utterly responsible for everything that's gone on and you're hateful and all that. I try very hard, because I've got Jewish friends, to point out that the only democratic elected state in the whole of the bloody Middle East is, in fact, Israel. The only state that isn't funded by the mad mullahs of Tehran with their terrorist organisations, the Houthis and Hamas and all those sorts of people, is, in fact, Israel. I'm not saying I agree with everything Netanyahu does, and I'm not saying I like what I see in Gaza, but I do think that Jews get the thin end of the wedge, and I've thought it for a long, long time, Jake. I think it's dreadful.
Yeah, I mean, look, war is horrible. That's why we try not to start them. That's why Israel didn't start this. It waged war in response to October the 7th, a little fact that most people often push aside. War is horrible. It's even more horrible when it's broadcast in Technicolor all over social media and our screens in a biased way, without showing any of the dead combatants and terrorists, but only showing civilian casualties, giving us the impression that it's just a gratuitous massacre. And actually, it's just a war like the ones that we've fought. And what's the alternative that Israel had? Should it just have sat back and allowed Hamas to carry out that massacre and then allow them to do it again and again and again? I mean, right-thinking people understand that this is a justified war that Israel's been carrying out. But in terms of our problem here in Britain, that's what we need to talk about and sort out on our own shores. And it's not Islamophobic to point out that many Muslim communities are dominated by extremist elements who are controlling, in some cases, or seeking to control the police. Ordinary Muslims are being intimidated and prevented from speaking out and being pro-Israeli, pro-Jewish, pro-Western by these extremists who are presenting themselves as community leaders and seeking to enforce their extreme version of Islam on the rest of us. That's what we need to stand up against. That is not in any way bigoted or Islamophobic.
Really good to have you on as ever, my friend. It's great to get your perspective. Thank you, Jake Wallis Simons, author and columnist and author of Israelophobia. You try saying on the newest version of The Oldest Hatred and What to Do About It.